Hi everyone, Vic here, and for today's video I'm gonna see what the big deal is. Colleen Hoover. I don't think you can find a more controversial author on BookTube. She is absolutely adored and loved and celebrated over on BookTok. And here on BookTube, she kinda got low-key cancelled. So if we flash back a good few years now, people on BookTube loved Colleen Hoover. Around the time that Hopeless and Ugly Love were coming out, everybody was really excited, buying her books, reading her books, apparently loving them. And then it's like everybody suddenly went, hang on a minute, this is problematic. This relationship is toxic. This is not healthy. Don't like it, won't read it, goodbye. And some people got really vocal about not liking Colleen Hoover, but for the most part, people just stopped talking about her. They stopped buying her books, they got rid of the ones they had, and she just hasn't been talked about, or wasn't talked about, for a long time. Along comes BookTok, who find Colleen Hoover books and go, oh my god, this is amazing, this is great, we love it, we're obsessed, read every single thing she's ever written, and continue to love her. Now we've got BookTok people on BookTube, so BookTube has become an amalgamation of people who love Colleen Hoover, and people who can't stand Colleen Hoover, and people who just stay silent. You don't have a lot of middle ground. And I want to know what the big deal is. Is it as bad as everyone says? Is it as good as everyone says? For full context, I have actually read a Colleen Hoover before, almost 10 years ago. When I was like 15, 16, I did read Ugly Love because it was popular on BookTube, and I didn't love it. I think I gave it like a 3 or a 2 stars. I wasn't upset by it, I just didn't really love it. There was a dual timeline in that book and I didn't care at all about the one that was set in the past. And while I think elements of that relationship weren't great, it was no different than other romance books that I was reading at the time. I didn't think it was especially bad. So I thought, let's go into this with an open mind. I don't have any interest in hate reading a book, so I'm definitely not going into this wanting to hate on it because I have better things to do with my time. But I am going to be reading It Ends With Us. This is Colleen Hoover's most popular book. I was like 125th on the wait list from my library. Still managed to get it within a couple of weeks, but you know. But I figured I would give her a fair shot. I would read the most popular, the most loved, the most recommended Colleen Hoover book and see if I enjoy it. For context, I do love romance books. I'm not reading this as someone who doesn't even like romance. I got Icebreaker and the sequel over here. Also, before you ask, all of the books on the shelves behind me I have read, so I'm not just like randomly showing you TBR books. I've got Emily Henry. I read Valerie McFarlane. Not gonna pick them all up because there's about 1 billion of them. But the Bridgerton series, this is overwhelming. I'm a big Christina Lauren fan. I've read a fair amount of Helena Hunting. There's more, but I either can't reach them or can't be bothered getting them out right now, but I read a lot of romance. Romance is like one of my favorite genres right now. So I'm actually hoping I like this because it would be a new author that I can read the whole backlist of. I know what you're thinking, you've already read Colleen Hoover. Yes, but I was a child. Now I'm an old lady. So what is this book about? This book that everybody seems to love. Okay. We follow a girl named Lily who owns her own business. I don't know what it is, but it's a business. She feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid. Okay, so he's assertive, stubborn, and arrogant. Love it. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. And a complete aversion to relationships. That feels familiar. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love and a link to the past she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When he suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. Love that comes with the ultimate price. I am a little concerned that one of the little quotes on the back is from none other than Anna Todd. And you might be thinking, why is that concerning to you when you own her books? Listen, I read these when I was like 14 and loved them. I read them on Wattpad. They're not good. I would not recommend these books to anybody. Like, it is the most toxic relationship you'll ever read in your life. So that's not exactly giving me hope here. I want to like it. I'm gonna try to like it. So if I really don't like it, it's not my fault. I'm stepping into a very vocal part of the online book community with this because Colleen Hoover stans are scary. I don't want to get on their bad side. I'm doing this to see if I enjoy it. Okay, leave me alone. It's 367 pages long. But yes, I'm gonna go and read this and then I'm gonna come back and discuss fully what I think of everything in this book. This is going to be a spoilery video, so if you don't want to be spoiled on this book, I'm sorry, but this is not the video for you. I'm excited to give this a go. I'm gonna read it. I'll be back. When I tell you that I only have 2 of these post-it notes left, it's because they're all in this book. This is a library book, so I couldn't mark it in any way, which I wouldn't have anyway. I'd never mark books or post-it books, but I wanted to be able to be thorough when telling you what I think of this. So there's just a couple post-it notes. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Now, before you yell at me, it's probably more like a 3.5, but I don't do decimals in my ratings, but just know it's a higher 3. I enjoyed quite a lot of things that this book did. I think it had some really interesting conversations. I really didn't like some things this book did, and then some of the things I was really not liking, I was right to not like, so it's not really something to hold against the book. These post-its all say things, and some of them are ridiculous. Some of them are critiques, some of them are reactions. In the end, it was like I was just talking to Lily. Also, I've realized I've been saying his name Ryle this whole time. It's probably still said Riley, because that's an actual name. It's just spelt weird. And now I'm not sure how I'm supposed to say it because I actually stopped and thought about it for a second. But I don't like him. This is going to be spoilery, this part, because I am just going to talk about a whole bunch of what I was feeling while reading this book. I will say I decided to list the trigger warnings, and it took a couple post-its. We have suicidal thoughts, family death, weed. Is that a trigger? I don't know. Some people maybe, so I put it in here. It's not actually in there very much, but it was in there. Domestic abuse, guns and death of a child, homelessness with youth homelessness, cancer, child abuse, and rape. Gotta have that last one, right? A lot of trigger warnings for a romance book, right? So my overall thoughts of this, I enjoyed this for the most part. I really loved Atlas. He was the highlight of this book. I think Lily was an interesting character. She actually brought a lot of perspective into this issue. This is a book about domestic abuse. Like, that's what this is. I would call this that more than I would call it a romance. I think labeling it a romance isn't quite accurate. It reads like a romance in a lot of ways, but it is an exploration of a domestic abuse situation. So keep that in mind. I liked Lily as a character. I think while I didn't agree with everything she was doing at the start of the book, I understand why that was necessary in order to tell the story this was telling. I didn't really ever buy her and Riley having a connection or having chemistry. Their relationship always felt really weird to me, but maybe that's just because I was picking up on all the signs. But I never really rooted for them at all, in any sense of the word. There are little like diary entries throughout this book that Lily wrote when she was a teenager about her time with Atlas, and they were like my favorite part of this book. Yeah, the pacing was just a little all over the place. We kept jumping time every now and then, randomly, just to service the plot, and it made things feel rushed. And I think that's one of the reasons why I couldn't buy this relationship, because it was rushed. I didn't actually see them develop any real feelings towards each other. I didn't see them interact. I didn't see any of it. I was just told it had happened. I'm like, I don't believe you. So I don't think this had as much of an impact on me as it could have had, because I didn't feel her heartache and I didn't feel her betrayal as much as I think I should have, because I was already disconnected from their entire relationship. Based on this book alone, I would want to read more Colleen Hoover, but I really worry that the concerning behavior that I saw in here exists in the other relationships she creates that are not supposed to be problematic. There were things in here that Riley that I recognized from the relationship in Ugly Love, which is supposed to be a good relationship. I am still concerned about her more romance-focused books, but I would be interested in giving her another shot in the future. But we're gonna go through some of my post-its, not all of them because some of them are pointless, but I I will say, I was picking up so many red flags between her and Riley at the start of this book, and I was like, why are we really just having a toxic relationship? Because I didn't realize it was going to be an exploration of an abusive relationship. I didn't realize that was an aspect of this book, so I was just picking up all these red flags and being very concerned that that was going to be portrayed as ideal. Now we're gonna go through my post-its. The first red flag I noticed and stuck a post-it down on page 5. Shout out to my handwriting. This says, first time she sees this guy, he's having a violent breakdown and assaulting a chair. And it's thought of as good. He's like kicking a chair and throwing it around because he's angry about something, and she says it's great that he has an outlet. Whereas I keep my aggression pent up until it manifests in the form of passive aggressiveness, this guy actually has an outlet. Great job right off the bat. Just turn a blind eye to that red flag. Why don't you? The next page, I said this guy was scary. We're talking about Riley at this point, by the way. This is the first interaction between her and Riley, and I'm saying he's scary. So that's something. This whole chapter is written so dramatically, it's ridiculous. I thought about this as I was reading through this book, but this first chapter, which is basically supposed to be their meet cute, didn't need to be in this book. It has such a wildly weird tone to it that I did not like. I did not like that chapter, and I was really worried, oh my god, I'm gonna hate this whole book. It's just that chapter. I don't know why it's so bad, but that chapter is really poorly written. It's very dramatic. She thinks this guy's hot, and I'm like, okay, but like, I don't see it. Right now I'm seeing this scary, violent man harassing the crap out of this woman, and I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. Oh, this was just me commenting on the fact that her full name is Lily Blossom Bloom. As if a real human is gonna name their kid that. We're just going for quirky at this point. DMC with a random stranger you met beating up a chair. This is the meet cute. This is when I realized that's what I was reading. I was reading the meet cute, and I was disappointed. Because it wasn't cute. It did not feel natural. It felt very much like, hey, we're at the start of a romance book. Let's share all our deep, dark secrets. We weren't off to a good start in chapter 1. Oh, and this, I made this comment. When someone tells you their dad hit their mum, the appropriate response is not, there are no bad people. Because that was his response. Oh, and then like a couple pages later, when they're doing their naked truths, that's an ongoing theme in this book. This thing they do where they say naked truth, and then they say something really honest about their thoughts or about their past to each other that they wouldn't normally tell somebody. And his one this time around was, I want to fuck you. Which felt very inappropriate because it was right after she was talking about how her father, who was abusive to her mother, at his funeral, she like gave an anti-eulogy kind of vibe. This whole conversation is basically irrelevant for the rest of the book. Except for the fact that we learn in this chapter that she really wants to find like Mr. Right and be happy in a committed relationship. And like she doesn't do casual, that's all he wants. Like we learn right off the bat they want very, very different things, and they both know that about each other. Keep that in mind. This is him continuing to talk about how he wants to have sex with her and do stuff with her when she has literally just said she's not interested in that. So I said, alright dude, back off. Like I get it, but back off. Oh, the diary entries I was talking about, they're all addressed to Ellen DeGeneres. And I wrote, writing a diary to Ellen is weird. Because it is. I understand putting a quirk in it. It is a romance book. Any kind of romance book or rom-com, something has to have an extra quirk. That's just part of the rules. So I understand. I don't really understand, like why was it Ellen? It's a bit odd. But I got past it pretty quick. I like this timeline. I really enjoyed reading the letters to Ellen. They were actually my favorite part of this whole book. Oh, okay, so the one female friend we do get in this book is Riley's sister, who ends up working for Lily at her new florist shop. Almost as like a hobby because she's so super rich she doesn't need a job, and I'm like, oh god. I literally said, who is this random fairy girl? Because she just kind of popped up out of nowhere for no reason, just to be this little helper to Lily and all of the things she was doing. This is not how people work, but at least we did end up with a pretty solid female friendship between the two of them. I did like that going forward. She just was giving Manic Pixie Dream Girl at the start. It's supposed to be months later. Yeah, chapter 3 skips 6 months forward, which this is what I mean. The timeline is all over the place with this book. The pacing is so off. So it's been 6 months, but it feels like 5 seconds ago. So she's like reflecting on it and calling back, and I'm like, this just happened. Again, he says, I still very much want to fuck you. He is a little drunk this time, so I guess it's a little more excusable. And his sister overhears this and like kind of goes off on him, and that's inappropriate. Don't be like this. And I just said, ha 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 ha, shame. You can tell I don't like him. She mentioned so many times in these letters to Ellen that Atlas seemed obsessed with her age and kept asking when she was going to turn 16 and she couldn't figure out why, and I was like, because he likes you when you're a child. Which is a little bit weird and is a bit of a point against Atlas because he's 18 and she's 15, and like I know that's only, oh, she says at some point in this that they're 2.5 years apart, and like that's not actually a big age gap, but it is weird for an 18-year-old to want to be with a 15-year-old. That's weird. Sorry Atlas, I love you, but that's weird. Oh, then we've got Riley basically trying to pressure guilt her into having sex. He shows up at her house and is like, listen, I'm going through a really important part of work and I can't think because all I can think about is you. We just have to do it once. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I said Atlas would never pressure / guilt you into sex, which is true, he would never. But she calls him out, and I said love that she called him out on it. And then I said, and yet you cave. And then I quoted a different book, one of my favorite non-fictions I've ever read in my life, Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. If it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. Quotes to live by. Seriously, read this book, it's so good. She's clearly not that into it, but she's agreed because she's kind of interested in him, but she's interested in him more emotionally, and it's just gonna end up hurting her, and he's ignoring that because he's a dick. And then I called it, he's going to fall asleep because she went to have a shower and he fell asleep. Did we time skip a lot? It's making the pacing weird because we now jumped forward 53 days to the opening of her florist shop. And then he has a picture, a very blurry picture of her, so no one can really distinguish that's what it is, hanging up in the apartment he shares with his sister, and she sees it when she goes to his sister's birthday party. And I said, that's kind of creepy, because everybody looks at that painting and is like, I don't know what that is, and I'm like, oh my god, that's creepy. I really liked this. I said we love honesty in response, because he is once again crapping on about how he wants to be with her because he just can't fucking stop. And she says, you don't get it, do you? I like you, Riley, and knowing that you only want me for one night makes me really, really sad. And maybe if this were a few months ago, we could have had sex and it would have been fine. You could have walked away and I could have easily moved on with my life. But it's not a few months ago. You waited too long, and too many pieces of me are invested in you now, so please stop flirting with me. Stop hanging pictures of me in your apartment and stop sending me flowers. Because when you do those things, it doesn't feel good, Riley. It actually kind of hurts. And I'm like, yes, share how that feels. Share your feelings. Be open, be honest. And one thing I do appreciate about this book is she does that a lot. You know, they both kind of do. They don't bottle up all of what they're feeling all the time and then have stupid arguments. I mean, they have stupid arguments, but it's for different reasons. But then instead he picks her up, literally physically picks her up, traps her in his bedroom and says that he wants to try being with her, even though he said he had no interest in a relationship. Now he wants to be in a relationship. And I said, dude, were you not listening? Where's the respect? And like, I understand now, reflecting on all of these things, that I'm supposed to have noticed them. I'm supposed to see how this supposed relationship is unhealthy, is devolving, is falling apart, and is dangerous. I'm supposed to pick up on these red flags and to know that they're red flags. She doesn't know that they're red flags, or if she notices that they're not great, she brushes it off as something else. Now I'm actually quite impressed with just how many red flags Colleen Hoover was able to put in this relationship while still making it a relationship, you know? Like, there's confrontation between the two of them. She will call him out, and like, there is the back and forth, and a lot of these red flags are smaller, more subtle things that I was just getting really annoyed about because I didn't like him, but they're things that I would have potentially overlooked if I didn't dislike him so much. And so I actually think it was quite clever. We're this far through the book at this point. Atlas has shown up. He is here in the flesh, and I'm just very excited about it. He is such a supportive friend, and he's really just out there to look out for her. He's not in it for himself. He's just concerned, is she happy, is she safe? And I think it's so good that he's not a dick. Here I say I like their chemistry. I don't really feel the connection with Riley. Again, me shitting on Riley. That's all this was. Just me shitting on Riley the whole time and loving on Atlas. I really felt the friendship, the connection, the building chemistry between Lily and Atlas in all these letters, and even in the present day they have chemistry. Her and Riley don't. I just don't feel it. I don't get it. I'm really impressed with how Colleen Hoover handled domestic abuse in this book. She kind of covered it from a few different perspectives. We saw Lily's view of the situation between her mother and her father, where she was almost a little bit victim blamey, or at the very least angry that her mother wasn't leaving her father. And then we see it again through her mother a little bit and the things that she says and the ways she's justifying how she's living. And then we see it again as Lily starts to go through it with Riley and how she starts to get a deeper understanding for what her mum went through, as well as trying to muddle through what she's going through with Riley, because she realizes the whole thing is a lot more complicated than just, oh, this guy is bad, I'm leaving. There's a lot more layers, there's a lot more to it that makes it hard. It's really hard to leave someone who's abusive, and I think Colleen Hoover did a really good job of showing that. Oh, okay, this is the first real instance of abuse where I just said oh shit, because they're both drinking wine, which turns out to it must have been the fucking strongest wine in the world, because they both got drunk off their faces after like 2 glasses. And he tries to pick a casserole out of the oven without oven mitts, and so he drops it, glass goes everywhere, but he's burnt his hands, and he's a neurosurgeon and he has surgery in like 2 days. So he's freaking out about it, but she's drunk and she thinks it's kind of funny. So she's laughing, and then he pushes her and she bashes her head on the side of the counter, and suddenly things aren't very funny anymore. And he's super apologetic about it, but then she pushes him because he's like getting too close, and he lands in the glass with his hands, and it's like a whole shit show. That was the first instance, I guess, of things going physically bad. I would say he was manipulative this whole time. But then we have a scene that I will forever be angry about, where I commented and said, you shithead, because Atlas kind of confronts the situation because he notices that Lily has an injury on her face and he has his hand wrapped, and so Atlas is like, oh motherfuck, this bastard. And he doesn't make a big scene, you know. Riley does. Atlas is just like, he's a bit confrontational about it, but he doesn't go crazy. He says, you touch her again, I'll cut your fucking hand off and shove it down your throat, you worthless piece of shit. Which, like, that's pretty aggressive, but kind of justified. And then she says, Atlas, stop. And Riley goes, Atlas? This is Atlas? The homeless boy you pity fucked? And I'm like, bruh, who the fuck you think you are? And then they get back home, and I just say, this is a fuck up, because he's crapping on about how he didn't want a relationship because he didn't want the stress, and she's like, well fucking leave then. And I'm like, oh my god. He continues to not trust her with Atlas the entire rest of the book. He's convinced that she must definitely be cheating on him with Atlas. She never does. She never even close to does that. It doesn't even cross her mind. And Atlas would certainly never do it. Like, he's so aggressive about it that I'm kind of like, are you fucking cheating in the background? Like, what's going on, mate? Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place because I'm jumping to the pages of the post-its. This is why I'm running out of post-it notes. There were 2 post-it notes. What a waste of a perfectly good post-it note. Riley and Lily randomly decide to get married. Fully random, spur of the moment, on a whim, fly to Vegas and get married. And I just write, I don't like this. I don't see it ending well. I'm like, this is a problem. And at this point, I'm still not sure if it's going to be confronted in this book. I don't know where I thought it was going, but I was very concerned, and I was like, I don't like this. Oh, this shit. They get in another fight, and then he pushes her away, and then she, like, wakes up to him fixing up her face, and he says, you fell down the stairs. And I'm like, bullshit, I don't trust him. And then she's like, but I didn't fall, he pushed me again. I'm like, yeah, he did push you down the stairs, and now you needed stitches on your face. Dude is a problem. Okay, it goes, Lily, he whispers, you fell down the stairs. I can't tell if he's trying to convince me or himself. I calmly repeat myself, get out of my apartment. And then she like screams at him, get out, get out, get out. And I said, good, be strong, because she is trying to stand up for herself. She's very conflicted because she does still love him, but she knows that the way he's treating her is not okay. So it's really hard for her to stand up against it, but she knows she needs to. So whenever she does, I'm so proud. My post-it fell off. Then we have a situation where we learn about his traumatic past. When he was 6, found a gun when he was hanging out with his siblings in their garage and accidentally shot and killed his brother, who was older than him by like a year, because he was 6, and like, how was he supposed to know that was a real gun? Like, that would be very traumatizing. Yes, and that whole scene is very upsetting and very traumatizing, and like, yikes. But I did say, okay, so past trauma, you don't get to be abusive because of it. That sounds really harsh, but I'm serious. You can go through fucked up shit, and that's not okay. You don't deserve that. That doesn't mean everybody around you deserves to also go through fucked up shit. Flash forward, they're trying again. Fucking of course they are. He was given an opportunity to move, or has the potential to take an opportunity to move cities for work, and she doesn't want to leave Boston, and he makes some fucking thing. I told you I wanted to be the best in my field, Lily. I told you this the first night we ever met. It was one of my naked truths, but if I have to choose between working at the best hospital in the world and making my wife happy, I choose you. You are my success. As long as we're happy, I don't care where I work. We'll stay in Boston. Now he's guilting you. It's only going to get worse. Because he's making himself look like the good guy, making a huge sacrifice for their relationship, while at the same time getting at her that she should have seen this coming, that he told her right from the start, and that this is a huge opportunity he's gonna have to miss, and it's just gonna be a thing now. It's gonna be a thing forever. If anyone makes you feel like you're holding them back, they can fuck right off, because no. This pisses me off with no abandon. She has a magnet, a Boston magnet on her fridge that was given to her by Atlas when she was 16, that was like really sentimental and important to her because of how important that relationship was to her. And this motherfucker, she comes home after staying longer with Riley's sister and the newborn baby, after he said while they were in the hospital, let's make one of those, which what a weird way to word that, but whatever. And she comes home and he's playing with the magnet and he's like, where did you get this? I hate this fucker. She's like, oh, I don't really remember, because she knows he's such a psycho about anything to do with Atlas. And then he's literally, I don't know how to word this, touching her in her special places, and then goes, where did you get the magnet, Lily? And I'm like, ew, no, abort, run. Like, at that point I'm like, no, big no, run the fuck out of that room right now. Like, no. He's using sex as a power play to continue asking creepy, threatening questions. I'm like, no, fuck right off. At this point I was genuinely concerned. He read your diary, because I figured out that that's the only reason why he would be so devastated about this. He did, yeah. Their pages were all over the bed when she goes in the room. And then he almost rapes her. In fact, I'm not convinced he didn't, because she ends up unconscious. So who really knows what happened there? He headbutts her. That's where the main injury comes out. He's like trying to do things, trying to rape her. And so she bites down on his tongue, and then he smashes his forehead into hers. And then she's unconscious. And that's why I'm like, I'm not convinced he stopped. He might have stopped. When she comes to, he's all like, I'm sorry, I love you, I'm so sorry. And she says, I utilize his panic to my advantage. I shake my head and whisper, it's okay, Riley, it's okay. You were angry, it's okay. I saw that word usage, utilize his panic to my advantage. I say, I hope she leaves this time. And girl, guess what? She fucking did. I'm so glad she ended up calling Atlas. And my response to that was, thank God. He comes and picks her up, takes her to the hospital. She doesn't want to do the rape kit, which I learned is called a SANE exam. S-A-N-E. Like, is that on purpose? Was that done on purpose? A SANE exam? Like, what does that stand for? Because that's kind of ironic. And like, I don't want to be looking for irony in a rape kit, but then she's having like a whole crisis because, you know, she still loves him, but she knows there's no way in hell she should be going back to this man, and she doesn't want to go back to this man. But also, plot twist, she's pregnant, which is just the cherry on top at this point. She writes a new letter to Ellen where she's talking about how hard this is, and how she doesn't really know what the right thing to do is, except she kind of does know what the right thing to do is, but it's so hard, and people on the outside don't know how hard this is. And I said, this is actually quite insightful, because it is. This whole book is actually quite insightful. This was me being heartbroken because she kind of has to leave Atlas. She's not getting back with Riley, don't worry, but she is in a really complicated position right now, and Atlas says, if you ever need me, I want you to call me, but only if it's an emergency. I'm not capable of being casual with you, Lily. And I just said no, because it meant Atlas was fucking leaving the story, and I couldn't cope with that. In the future, if by some miracle you ever find yourself in the position to fall in love again, fall in love with me. You're still my favorite person, Lily, always will be. And I just said, please, because I need that. If all of her love interests are like Atlas, I'm gonna love Colleen Hoover forever, but I don't think they are. And then this is where I say, yes, female friendship with a heart, because she finally says everything that happened, because Riley ended up going to a medical training thing in England, and so his sister didn't really know what happened between him and Lily, but she's kind of felt like something's off, so she finally confronts Lily and is like, hey, what the fuck is going on? Can you tell me what's happening? And Lily tells her everything that went down. And she says, my brother loves you, Lily. He loves you so much. You have changed his entire life and made him someone that I never thought he could be. As his sister, I wish more than anything that you could find a way to forgive him. But as your best friend, I have to tell you that if you take him back, I will never speak to you again. Like, she's on Lily's side. She's not brushing what he did, what he's done, under a rug and just pretending everything's fine. She's like, no, this is fucked. You don't deserve this. She actively still wants to be friends with Lily, continues to be friends with Lily, and it's just a beautiful friendship, really, from our manic pixie dream girl. I said I am so proud right now because there is a moment of confrontation between Lily and Riley, and she says, you don't get to say your truth until I've said mine. Yes, I kept the magnet Atlas gave me when we were kids. Yes, I kept the journals. No, I didn't tell you about my tattoo. Yes, I probably should have. And yes, I still love him. And I'll love him until I die because he was a huge part of my life. And yes, I'm sure that hurts you, but none of that gave you the right to do what you did to me. Even if you would have walked into my bedroom and caught us in bed together, you still would not have had the right to lay a hand on me, you goddamn son of a bitch. Yes! I'm so sick of people blaming themselves. Being like, if I didn't say this, if I didn't do this, they wouldn't have reacted in this way. I'm like, no, you are not responsible for their actions. No one ever has the right to physically hit you. No one ever has the right to abuse you in any way. No matter what you have done, they do not have the right to do that. And I'm just so glad that not only is that said in this book, but she fucking yells it at his face. I'm like, yes. And then I said yes, queen, to what her mum said when she told her mum everything that happened, because she said, don't be like me, Lily. I know that you believe he loves you, and I'm sure he does, but he's not loving you the right way. He doesn't love you the way you deserve to be loved. If Riley truly loves you, he wouldn't allow you to take him back. He would make the decision to leave you himself, so that he knows for a fact he can never hurt you again. Yes, queen. See, I knew I hated Riley for a reason. I don't hate characters. I don't dislike characters often. In a romance book, I hated him from the get-go. Oh, flash forward to like near the end of the book now. She's super heavily pregnant. They've been working on some kind of, let's not be aggressive and angry to each other all the time. She's aware she's pregnant with his kid and he wants to be able to see his kid, so she's leaving doors open for that, you know, letting him be involved. And she calls him to say that she's in labor, her water broke, and then he's like, okay, I'll come, like, to take her to the hospital to give birth. And then she's like, I feel kind of gross, so I jump in the shower to rinse off. And he comes in and he's like, you're in the shower? Lily, get out of the shower, let's go. Because she's like actively having contractions, and I'm like, he kind of has a point. Like, get out of the shower, what are you doing? And then she freaking went and named her new baby daughter after his dead brother. Named her Emerson, which like is a cute name. They call her Emmy, but I'm like, can no one in this book give their child their own name? Like, does everybody have to be named after somebody else? Oh, this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, you guys. So she just had her baby and she's looking at this little baby in his arms and she says, I want a divorce. And she says, Riley, what would you do if one of these days this little girl looked up to you and she said, Daddy, my boyfriend hit me? What would you say to her? What if she came to you and said, Daddy, my husband pushed me down the stairs. He said it was an accident. What should I do? What if, my voice breaks, what if she came to you and said, my husband tried to rape me, Daddy. He held me down while I begged him to stop. And he swears he'll never do it again. What should I do, Daddy? What will you say to her, Riley? Tell me. I need to know what you would say to our daughter if the man she loves with all her heart ever hurts her. I would beg her to leave him, he says through his tears. I would tell her that she is worth so much more, and I would beg her not to go back, no matter how much he loves her. She's worth so much more. Yikes, that was a lot of feelings. Like, he's a dick, and I hate it that this book has made me still feel bad for him, you know? Like, I don't want him to be with her. No. But she says in here that she wants her daughter to only have good memories with him. And if he is with them, there will be years and years of good memories, but she will focus and remember the bad ones when he's yelling at mum and all that stuff, because that's what she had with her father. So she's trying to break the cycle. And then I say, I miss Atlas. And then literally on the next page, there's Atlas. I'm like, oh, didn't have to miss him for long. Oh my god, there's been this running line throughout this book. Atlas and Lily always watched Ellen DeGeneres because she was obsessed with Ellen. That's why she writes her diary entries as letters to Ellen. So they watched Finding Nemo, and then Just Keep Swimming kind of became a thing between them because they kind of both had shit lives. And then he says to her, the last line in this book, "You can stop swimming now, Lily. We finally reached the shore." And I literally said, perfect last line, because also they ended up together. What a whirlwind. I know it sounds like I should give this book more than a 3.5 after what I just said, but again, the pacing was really weird and the writing wasn't my favorite. It wasn't bad. Like, the writing was pretty similar to a lot of romance books. Not my favorite. I really appreciate what this did and what it had to say in this kind of journey we just went through about an abusive relationship. I think Colleen Hoover did an excellent job with that. I really do. I'm still only gonna give it a 3 on Goodreads. I can see why this is so loved. It just didn't quite do it for me, and I do think that's a me thing more than this book. But I'm definitely open to reading more from Colleen Hoover in the future. This was scores better than Ugly Love. So hey, if you've read Colleen Hoover and you were here to see what I ended up thinking, do you have any recommendations, considering I liked this one? What would you recommend I try? Because I would be interested in trying one of her other books and seeing how I feel about them, because if her other love interests are more like Atlas, then I will very much want to read them. But I finished this book. I took all my post-its out of it. Now I have just so many post-its. I finished it. I read Colleen Hoover. Is she the best thing I've ever read? No. But I can understand why at least this book is so well liked. It's pretty good. My butt is going numb. I've been sitting on this chair, which is a stool, for 40 minutes. But yeah, I'm so glad that I read this and I did enjoy it. And now I can take it back to the library for the next however many people have it on hold, because it's got quite the backlog. If you've read this book, I certainly hope you have if you're at this point in the video, or you won't get much out of reading it now. Let me know what you thought of it. What were your favorite bits? Did you buy the relationship between Lily and Riley more than I did? Because I certainly didn't. Let me know what your favorite Colleen Hoover book is. If it's this one, tell me your second favorite. That's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I'm on a roll with videos lately. We're making good stuff. I hope to see you all next time in my next video. Bye.